Hello and welcome. My name is Brittany Proctor, and I am the licensed professional counselor and chemical dependency counselor here at the VC Counseling Center. And I'm here with a very special guest today. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Sevier. I am the administrative assistant for advising, counseling, and recruitment.
And more importantly, she is also a recent VC graduate.
Yes.
Congratulations again. So what are your plans like at this point?
Next, I am going off to my bachelor's in psychology.
Oh, that's exciting. And it's an even more perfect fit for the podcast today. So today we're super fun topic. We're going to dive into this idea and this like such a common struggle that all student parents have, right? This tug of war emotionally between being a student and also being a parent at the same time. So today we're going to talk about mom guilt, which is like that heavy feeling so many moms carry, how this intersects with academic pressure, burnout, self-care. So if you're juggling books, babies, and big expectations, this is definitely an episode for you. So really, unfortunately, at this moment in time, we don't actually have statistics of how many VC students are parents, but ultimately most of them are at the end of the day. So let's start off with the reason you're here is mom guilt. I know that's why you clicked it. I know that's what you want us to talk about. So let's start with that. Let's define what mom guilt is so that we can all be on the same page. So Becca, what would you call mom guilt?
Oh, mom guilt is that moment when your kid is begging and begging for something, whether it be attention, time, an item, and you're like, no, I can't do it. And you can't do it because of reasons that are hitting you or, you're unable to meet those reasons and pretty much. And you're just like, I feel so bad. I wish I could do this more. I wish I could pay for that. I wish, that guilt starts to set in of not being able to do it for your kid.
Not being able to do everything, really.
Right.
I would even broaden it too, because it's like not even just doing stuff for our kids, but also like being able to study the necessary amount of hours for a specific test. So then going in and doing worse than we wanted to because we just didn't have the time to study even too. And I like what you said too, because I feel like it's even harder when they're young too, and they don't understand that this is temporary or that, what you're doing or why you're doing it. All that they really see is that you're just like not here, or you always have to go study and I can't talk to mom whenever she does that. For sure. And so, yeah, mom guilt is just that persistent feeling of not being a good enough parent, not being able to meet all of these needs, especially when we're balancing other responsibilities, whatever they might be. So mom guilt isn't like unique to being a student only. We can have mom guilt with our career. We can have mom guilt with our hobbies and the things that we enjoy doing. So it can really apply to anything. And we do know that in general, student parents are increasing in higher education. So according to a recent study, 22% of all undergrad students in the United States are parents, and 70% of them are mothers specifically. So it seems like moms are going to college a lot more than dads are going to college too. And I think it's interesting because if we look at like parenting, academics, work, all of this intersects. And usually most of our students also work in some capacity while we're also going to school and also being a parent at the same time. And it creates I feel like it creates a very unique position for student parents. And, Becca, obviously you're a parent as well. So tell me a little bit about your experiences in trying to juggle all three of these things.
It's hard. You want to be there for your kid. You want to be there for your kid's mental health. You want to be there for your mental health. You want to be there to, for yourself succeed. So that way you can do more for your kid. You're trying to also feed them. That's important.
That's required. Yeah.
And when you go, you're not just feeding your child, you're having to cook, clean, do, everything that goes with it. And it's not trying to juggle all of that. It's not as easy as people think it is, and any moment could turn. So if your kid is sick, everything goes down.
Yeah.
Everything that you just had scheduled out to the T is out the window because it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, so what do you feel like were the biggest challenges for you trying to juggle all of these things?
Oh my gosh. The biggest challenge was making sure that I took the time for my kid, and then also took the time to make as high as a grade as I would like to, as in A's or B's. So a good example is my child is not a little child. He is, I'm going to say his age, he's 9.
Yeah.
So I had to go to a student or parent teacher conference. That teacher was like, oh, he's doing so great. However, he does need work in this area, and the way to do it is being on the laptop. We only have one laptop at the house. So when she told me that, I'm like, so she's like, he needs more time on the computer. And I'm like, oh, but I need the computer.
Yeah.
I have all my schoolwork I need to do. But you can't tell the teacher that, because that's whenever also the mom guilt comes in, because you're like, I don't want them to judge me.
Or think that I can't do it all. Yeah.
Because I feel like that's every mother goes through that of, oh my gosh, they're going to judge me. Oh my God, they're going to think I'm a bad mom. Oh my gosh, I'm this person who's not capable of handling all this stuff that life gives to other people. And you see other people and you're like, they look great. They look like they could do it all.
They make it look easy. Yes.
And here we are, just here I am feeling some type of way over a laptop, because I'm like, well, whose education is more important? My son's or mine? So you have to weigh in there. And then, like I said, you could do a schedule, you could have it down, but then there's always something that is going to get in the way of saying, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I feel like it's so, I love that you bring that up about feeling like everyone else or every other parent that's going to school has it all together, because it is like, there's that perception. I feel like, especially on social media, that this is supposed to be easy and that everything is straightforward, when in reality, it absolutely isn't. And, you know, like you said, one small thing. My favorite thing is when they send out the parent teacher conferences, like 24-hour advance notice, not even. And I'm like, I have work, I have schedules, I have meetings. I cannot just drop everything. You are killing me. But like, it just happens all the time. And I like that you normalize that no one has it together. Everyone is barely keeping their head above water at all times, because it is. So some different other sources of mom guilt too, even, can be like leaving or having to leave our kids in daycare, especially when they're younger, before school age, missing milestones and not spending enough time with them. And I actually had my daughter in my bachelor's degree, mid-bachelor's degree, failed all my classes that semester that I had her, because I'm going to be real with you, I forgot I was in classes after having an infant. And then I got emails that I was, withdrawn, and I was like, oops, I was in college, wasn't I? But I feel like that's so, having to pick back up and like get back into it after that point too, of, especially when they're that young, being scared of, am I going to miss the first time that she walks? It definitely missed the first time that she talked and laughed, because I was in class whenever those things happens. And it leads to that just overwhelming guilt of, I'm not being a good enough parent. And my education is why I'm not a good parent. And I feel like that's a hard thing for people to grapple with.
Right. And so I actually started my associates like way before. So whenever I had my son, I got a year off of not having to work. And to me, I was like, wow, this is like perfect. I get this whole year of just me and my child. And as time's going, I'm like, you know what? I got this down. Let me go back to school. So I go back in, and I have my sister watch him. And, you sit here and think, oh, he's small. He's going to be sleeping a lot, like you're good. You could do everything while he's sleeping. I had to pause from there because his sleep schedule got all messed up. And so here you were saying, oh, yay, I could do it while he sleeps. Okay, well, what about when you sleep? So, I had to stop. And this is, when people come back and they're like, oh, I'm a mom. Oh, I'm older. Oh, I get it. I understand. It is such a hard thing to go through. But, my biggest thing to tell other moms is don't stop. A little at a time, Yes, that stinks that I had to stop whenever he was an infant, or smaller. But I picked it back up, and I like that I did when he could see it. When he could realize what I'm doing.
And that's good too, to be able to, it's important to recognize too, that there's nothing wrong. You decide what you're willing to do or sacrifice at any given moment. So like the fact that I continued through school, through my daughter's younger years, was
Mhm.
a decision that I made calculated, right? But there's nothing wrong with
No.
saying, no, I want to be there for the
Yeah.
toddler years and the infant time. I'm going to take that time off. And like you said, come back whenever they're a little bit older and kind of calculate that for yourself. There's no right way to do it.
No, not at all.
It's just your way of doing it and what makes the most sense for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then to also think of all those moms who have children with health problems and all that stuff. There's always going to be a pause. I feel like no matter what, we always get moms get hit with pauses, and I feel like maybe that's why there's more moms, because they're like, hey, look, you know what? Who cares? I'm gonna take this on.
Well, and I think being a mom gives you a certain level of tenacity and like
Yes.
dedication to be able to take pauses where maybe some other students don't, have the ability or like the drive to continue taking those
Right.
pauses and coming back repeatedly. And even to that pressure to do everything and to do it all, right, is piled on top of, I feel like I felt that instantly once I became a mom, was then suddenly I felt this overwhelming pressure of, well, I should be able to do all of these things because I could do this before. This is just one more thing that I'm adding on. Like, it is a big deal. It's definitely a big deal. And like you become an expert in time management, that's for sure. So, a 2023 APA study found that 63% of mothers report feeling frequent guilt when juggling school, work, and parenting. And those messages can look like anything, like the examples that we've given so far. And even like, I should be able to be a better parent. I should be present for more things. I should be able to juggle all 3, 5, whatever of these roles. And then feeling immensely guilty that we're not doing enough in some way, or that we could be doing more, or that we could be doing better. And I feel like the problem with this is that we never stop to recognize like what we are doing along the way. I feel like it is another interesting topic to explore, that as moms and trying to juggle and do all of these things, right, it puts us at a much higher rate of sleep deprivation, obviously, because if it comes between, like you said, my kid using the laptop and me also studying today, I'm just going to put sleep off and like do that instead and not sleep, on top of the astronomically small amount of sleep that you get with an infant and toddler child, regardless, even with older kids. Anxiety puts us at higher rates of anxiety and depression compared to students who are not parents. And there's also, in general, especially in our area here in Victoria, just more limited access to childcare, healthcare. Sometimes flexible academic scheduling can even be difficult. At the end of the episode today, we'll talk about some resources we have here on campus specific to parenting and pregnant students that maybe you're not aware of that can absolutely help you if you do. So what was your experience like with juggling the schedule and the requirements? Like, how do you feel like an institution can support someone, or what do you feel like some of the challenges are?
The challenges are, so I'm going to use my last semester as a great example, because I did this a few times and I thought, oh, okay, this will work its way out. I thought I could take classes during my lunch break. And I'm like, I'll be okay. I'll be fine, And then when I get home, I could go study, do the online classes I have, and do what I need to do at home. No, like, you realize if you take class at lunch, your day's long.
Yeah.
There's no stopping. There's no, let me get out of here for a little bit and get that mental health break that I need, that
just
pause.
sit in the car and stare out the window. It's my favorite activity. Yeah, just decompress. Yeah.
Like for lunch, I never stay at work because I need that moment to get away. We're in a fast-paced environment. I see students all the time. So I need that moment to just breathe and to just hear silence for a little bit. And then to go to that, and then to jump to a class, and then go back to work, and your mind just constantly going. You're not stopping. And then you get home, then there's homework, your child
dishes,
everything you have to do. And then even if you get to the weekend, then you're like, oh, okay, I got to do laundry, I got to clean, and making sure that everything stays up. And then if your kid is in any type of extra activities, you got to go to games, you got to go do all this stuff, and you're like, okay, well, I wanted to go to the gym, I wanted to do this, I want to sleep. The nap sounds great.
Sleeping in would be great.
Sleeping in would be wonderful. But it just, it doesn't happen whenever you have a kid right there tugging at you saying that, what are we going to eat? What's for breakfast?
Well, and even that too, I hear a lot of times students will say, like, in the weekend, that guilt sets in of, well, now we need to do something fun because I don't want them to just sit at home all the time, and I want them to have good memories with me.
My son said this thing that always sits with me, and I hear it all the time. And he started saying it whenever I fully committed coming back to school, and it was, "Gosh, you never let me have any fun." And it's like, that's not true. I said no one time, and after that, like, you hear it, and I feel like that's a big part of that mom guilt. And you're like, wait a minute, we do need to have fun. What's fun? And you have to like kind of redefine what fun is too at the same time, because you're like, hey, let's stay at home because financially, hey, I just paid for classes. I cannot afford going to some of the fun, places that we have. Everything's expensive.
It is, yeah.
And so you're like, okay, let's like I said, redefine what fun is. Let's stay home. We're gonna create our own games. We're gonna do this. My son loves video games, so here I am. I don't want to learn how to play this game, but I'm going to, just so that way my son could be like, hey, I had fun with my mom,
Yeah.
So instead of my mom, she ignored me. We never do anything fun. We never go out. We never, there's never anything to do.
Yeah.
So I do my best to do what I can on weekends, whether, of course, we try to find the free, cheap things to do because, like I said, after paying for classes, how do you afford?
And books, yeah.
Yeah.
So depending on your major,
stuff, yes.
Absolutely. And it is, and it's so, I feel like it's so hard. And I like your ideas too, even like doing like a blanket for it in the house and watching movies, or like you said, taking on some of their hobbies that are already at the house, because it is, I mean, it's a constant juggle. And it feels like a weight of all this knowledge that and all of this long-term planning that you have, and you're dealing with, children who don't have that capability, and then trying to find a way to explain to them where they understand, like, this is temporary and this is for our long-term benefit and for like my mental health too, because it feels good to graduate and like accomplish something, for sure. So, okay. A 2022 study found that 52% of student parents considered dropping out in the past year, compared to only 33% of non-parent students. So this is something that is so common. And like you said, taking those breaks. So what do you feel like were the deciding factors for you when you sit there and you consider, should I drop classes? Should I drop out? Should I change my load? What were your motivating factors to make your decision in those moments?
What helped me decide was looking at my classes. I would look at them overall. I would look at my grades. I would sit there and say, wow, I've done this. I did good in this class. I should probably keep going. I should probably keep that up. I told myself, if I stop now, what am I going to do for myself? What am I going to do in, 5 to 10 years? What am I going to show for myself? Also, I come from a family where I am first generation. So nobody graduated before me. Nobody finished college. So it's like, you're kind of put on double too at the same time. So, you're like, speaking of mom, I want to make my mom happy and proud, and then, you're wanting to also be a great mom and make your child proud. But when your child doesn't understand what we're doing, it makes it kind of harder. So you're like, okay, do I stop because my kid is like, well, what is this for? Or do I keep going to show like, this is what it's for? So I think the idea of graduating, not knowing when, but just knowing that my child will be at an age of saying, wow, this is what it's for, is kind of what pushed me to go further and to see of like, what can I do with this? What am I going to do with this?
Well, because I feel like it's hard because there's that short-term gratification of like, if I stop now, the stress will immediately go down significantly, and that will be way easier. But then it's like balancing that with the long-term of like, okay, if I continue to suffer a little bit longer, there will be a graduation in sight, and the stress will decrease, but I'll also make more money or do something that I enjoy, and there'll be like payouts for it too.
And I try to tell my son like, hey, if I do this, like I said, he likes video games. I'm like, hey, if I do this, you get PlayStation cards. You get more.
We'll get a PlayStation, a Nintendo Switch, and an Xbox. products.
Exactly. You get it all. I try to explain it in that sense for him to understand like why it's important too. Also for him to that way. I hated that I took breaks. I hated that I didn't just go right out the back after high school. I would say, yeah, give yourself that break. But then I'm also like, don't be like me where I waited so long. Have yourself, while you're younger, while you can, while you don't have somebody at you saying, look at me instead,
Yeah.
Being a parent is great. I wouldn't regret it at all. Like, obviously, I love my child. I think he's like obviously the best thing to happen to me, but I wish I would have had things set before I had him, just so. But then again, then you're kind of sitting here like, oh, I'm happy you got to see me and got to understand why it's so important.
Well, and that's what I was going to say too, is like, ultimately you did the best you could with what you had at that time in your life. And like, yes, we can sit here today and look back and be like, I could have pushed or yada, yada. But ultimately, like, you did what you could do then and what you were capable of then. And you now is like, different than what you were then. So, and I feel like we've done a good job so far explaining like what mom guilt is and kind of defining that and what it actually looks like in daily life. So coming back to the big question here, given that you've graduated, you've gotten through this, it's finally behind you for now until you start the next chapter. But what are your thoughts on how did you manage this mom guilt? Like, do you have any thoughts, tips, tricks? Like, how did you specifically go through this and make it make sense for you and not cripple you?
I would really recommend going to therapy too. I feel like talking to somebody helped a lot and helped me, look at it from the outside of not just thinking, feeling so much of a guilt, but somebody, like I said, helping me look on the outside, somebody helping you with finding different ways too of coping, with yourself with that mom guilt, because we could go and we could do all these different things, but I feel like that mom guilt's always going to be knocking at the door and just hitting you and saying, like I said, I went to therapy, but I'm still in the head. I'm like thinking in the back of the head, I'm like, you just ignored your son. Go back and show him some love. My, my biggest thing is, keep going, but do it right next to them. Do it with them, next to you. Read a book together. A lot of times I'll pop out my laptop and I'll be studying, I'll be doing my homework. And my son, I would have him next to me doing his own homework, whether if I'm grading homework for him or not. I mean, now my son's in the GT program. So it's like, you're not only helping yourself, you're helping them too.
Yeah.
So definitely, keep going, but as you're going, making sure you show still that, those babies some love.
Well, yeah. And I like what you said about almost like killing two birds with one stone. Because you reminded me of something that we would do. There was a point in time where my daughter was struggling with taking notes, like, and how to organize that and structure it in her brain. So two birds with one stone. I lectured her on the thing I was learning while she took notes about it. And we made her dad do it too, because it was hilarious to see the difference in their notes and like what they missed. But we turned it into a fun game where she did that while I lectured, which helped me learn and retain the information and then helped her get feedback on, kind of identifying key points and stuff. So, and I love that advice because, include them in it as much as you reasonably can, obviously.
And I'm not going to look, I just finished college algebra and my son, he showed me some of his homework. He helped me with fractions. Yeah. My 9-year-old helped me with fractions.
I am also useless with math.
I am terrible. And I was like, look at you. You just showed me a new way of how to do this. And it helped. And it's so crazy. But like, this is, like you said, to, killing a bird with two stones, and you're able to also, learn from each other.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. And, do you feel like so speaking specifically to VC Campus, do you feel like there are any resources, things that, you utilize, didn't utilize? What do you wish student parents knew about and utilized more to help them be successful here?
Our learning lab is really great. There's a few times where I was like having to go there, but yet I'm a mom, so it's kind of hard. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna bring my child. He is older, so he's quiet. So it's nice to have that, to have, you know, our JP's market if I need to go get something really quick to just fuel myself. There's so much that we have on campus that is very helpful. That I would sit there and be like, oh yeah, make sure you go. Obviously going to the learning lab, trying to put in that time there versus, you know, being at home with your kid, it's hard. But like I said, making sure of how to juggle that. I like that this campus is very open and friendly to parents bringing their kids to things, because there was countless times of classes that I took in person that I had to take in person because that's what was all available. That were okay with bringing my son, because there was times where I was like, I have nobody to leave him with. What am I going to do? Like, I have to go to class. I can't miss. You miss a day, it's like missing a week. So I'm thankful for the amount of people that understand that momming is hard. And, you know, when they say it takes a village, I'm happy that this is a good village to have your back.
Yeah. You know, we always end up at coping strategies in general when we talk on this podcast. So here we are. So a therapist related coping strategy I would definitely recommend is, you know, you talked earlier about the mom guilt and those negative messages that come in our head, and going to therapy for that. And that's what I love about therapy, is I can kind of be that outside person to say, you know, you're doing fine. You're doing more than you need to. Let's look at what matters to you. Let's reel it back. Like, let's refocus. So sometimes just self-compassion. So just treating ourselves, talking to yourself like you would talk to your child. Like if your child came to you and said, I'm overwhelmed, I'm drowning, I can't do this anymore, I don't think you would tell them, you need to suck it up and you need to be doing more. No, most of us would say like, oh my God, you know, I'm so sorry that you feel that way. Come here. You're doing everything. You're amazing. You're great. We just want to talk to ourselves like we talk to our children or someone that we love. And doing self-compassion rather than perfectionism, and kind of recognizing the difference between the two.
Right. So with that, with my son, that's a good point. I wish I did that more to myself, of what I tell him versus, you know, what I tell myself. Of course, I wouldn't say it out loud for him to hear, because, you know, our kids hear everything that we say. They see what we do. They're just, you know, following us. And I wish I talked to myself like that more. I do.
Yeah.
I really do. Because with him, like, I always think of it when I was younger, my mom just made sure I passed my class.
Yeah.
She didn't make sure that I got an A or B or anything like that. It was just great that I passed. My mom was a single mom for a long time. She was there, but she wasn't at my award. She wasn't, I mean, I didn't get awards because I was just, you know, barely making it. Not barely, but I made it.
Yeah.
I wasn't high up there. So when you don't get awards, you know, what's the point of going?
Yeah.
So with my son, you know, with him, I always make sure, even if he didn't get a high grade in something, you know, I'll tell him like, what was it? Was it, let's go over it, instead of like, whatever. Or saying, oh my gosh, why did you make this terrible grade? How dare you? Like, you know, back in it's how can I help?
Yeah. How can we grow from this experience?
Exactly. Yeah. And so I always want to make sure that he understands, like, hey, look, I'm proud of you. Can we always do things a little bit better? Yeah, absolutely. But with what you're doing so far, I'm so proud of you.
I want you to say that to yourself. What you just said, I need you to do that.
Because let me tell you, when I'm taking classes and I'm in there, I'm like, why am I doing this? This is, you know, if I do very bad on one exam, I mean, I sit there and think for a moment, I'm like, you know what? It's okay. There's going to be others. I could do better. I got this. And then all of a sudden you just go right back down to, oh my God, what am I thinking? I'm never going to recover from this. Am I
capable? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And I just you always have to switch back. And it's like, but once you let that one negative come in, you're just, you know,
it does, it spirals. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, I like that. Telling yourself what you would tell your kids. Yeah. It definitely makes a difference.
Yeah. Speaking to ourselves kinder, we could all benefit from that.
Yes.
And then, as I said earlier, moms are expert time managers. That is required. It's just a skill you just, you know, it is bestowed upon you in terms of parenting for most people. So time management skills, right? Prioritization. So looking at our stuff in a week and saying like, okay, what is non-negotiable and what can I let slip if it needs to? Setting realistic goals, taking planned breaks throughout the day, Becca, what do you feel like you did in terms of time management that worked really well for you?
I did my best. I have a big I'm a big planner. I have a calendar, I have all this, and what I would do is I would set things to be due a day before.
Yep.
And you have that mindset. So many just students, period, have that mindset when you see due 11:59, can I finish it right at before it gets to 11:59? If you have that mindset at least a day before, one, everything's turned in, and then the next day,
Yeah.
there's a day to breathe. There's a day to do everything you have to do as well as doing mom things,
Yeah.
So a goal, like I would say to like set, especially as a parent, because whenever each semester there's always a break, whether you get spring break or, after you get winter break, anything of the sort. Look at that and then say, hey, how can I do what I can in my class ahead of time and then spend that time with my kid?
Yeah.
And especially working at RBC, I am able to have, spring break or I'm sorry, Thanksgiving break. You're able to have those weeks off. And since working here and then being a student, I have done just that. Did all my work, make sure I didn't have homework. And that spring break, I have been able to travel with my child.
Yeah.
I have been able to spend more time with him on those breaks. I have been able to, really do things that we weren't able to do before.
Yeah.
With me working full time and going to school. Here now I'm able, to fully focus on that. Before, if I was on vacation, I was studying for my finals.
Yeah.
I was focusing mostly on school, not on how I could spend more time with my child. But I found that way to figure out my time management, how to do my classes, how to turn everything in, how to, will it be hard for a little bit? Am I going to struggle right before spring break? Just a little, but I'll be okay.
Short term, yeah.
Just think about it.
I love that you said that about like gaslighting yourself about deadlines, because I did the same thing. I would, in the beginning of the semester, I would go through and I would put assignments due a week before they were actually due. And then I'd just leave it and forget. And there were several times where I'd start panicking and I'd go to my professor, like, I don't have time to finish this. And they're like, Brittany, there's still a week left. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did do that, didn't I? But it kept me ahead at the end of the day.
And what's good about it is you're turning this into your instructor and your instructor's looking at it. Some instructors will give it to you back and be like, wait, there's some more things you could look at.
Yeah.
So you get this more time to actually go back into your work and make it better.
And get feedback.
Yeah. Because let me tell you, when with my big research for American literature, like, if it wouldn't have been for that feedback, I wouldn't have done so great.
For sure. So, and then like we said, we both echoed so many times, right? Counseling, mental health support. We want to normalize asking for help. And yet I'm going to drill this so hard in everybody's head on this podcast. Like, come proactively, come early, come before we're in crisis mode, come get some skills, tips, tricks, implement it yourself, and then come back when and if you need to. So getting it preventatively, getting it early before we're at the point that we're, at no return. And then same thing with campus resources. We'll do more podcasts too. We're going to do one with support services to talk about some of the specific things that they can offer and help students out with. But, childcare, parenting student groups that we have here at the Counseling Center, you can find the current hours and days on our website. And then, obviously mental health counseling. But also, if you guys are not aware, most people are not. If you go to the VC homepage, right, and you scroll to the very, very bottom of the page, there is a section that says Students' Right to Know. If you click that, it'll take you to another page. Scroll all the way down, scroll, and you'll find pregnant and parenting students. Click that as well. So if you explore this page and look at it, there's so many resources and requirements that the college has to provide or accommodations for students who are pregnant or early parenting. And that can look like, you're entitled to reasonable adjustments for the health and safety of your pregnancy. And then students who miss class for reasons related to pregnancy, childbirth, or resulting medical issues, that those absences have to be allowed. So we're required as a college to have points of contact for these issues for you to work with to be able to, help in your coursework or any absences that you need. So definitely explore that page, check it out. If it applies to you, definitely utilize that. And then, so in wrap up, do you have any other thoughts, advice, nuggets of wisdom for our students listening to this who may also be parents with mom guilt?
Don't stop. Take your breaks as needed. Don't overdo yourself. Take 1 or 2 classes a semester. I went from taking 1 to 2 a semester to my last 2 semesters going full time. And was it hard? Yes. Did I
Yeah.
get through it? Yes. And my son, he was, there's nothing better than seeing that my son was proud of me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So definitely keep pushing through, find your community, even if it's here on campus, find your village, even if it's here on campus, and don't try not to be nervous about reaching out to people. Like we said
Yes.
earlier, you'd be impressed how many students sitting next to you are also parents. They just might not be talking about it openly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, thanks so much for listening. If you are interested in services or you need to reach out, you can always feel free to shoot us an email, give me a call, walk into the counseling center, and you can go to our website to see all of our services and scheduling and all that good stuff. So always reach out if you need anything. And thank you so much for listening.